I would like to move further now, and I would like to explore a little bit, what does it mean to be lead AI researcher at King? And there are many angles we can explore here, but what is AI at King, and what does a lead AI researcher do at King?
So my team is named AI R&D. So we are an R&D team within the tech organization at King. And then we have a lot of games, right? So the tech organization is responsible for supporting each of these games, like a startup that you have, right? Then what our team is focused on is in 3 areas. So we work on content generation. We are so, like, for instance, content level in Candy Crush is a content, or like, you know, you can have like a lot of different assets that we have in different games are our content. So content generation. Then we have also like user understanding and recommender systems, another area, and then building tools and infrastructure to scale machine learning in the company. The thing is that, like, a lot of if you look at the well-established AI companies, most of them, they are, so they have been built with a lot of, like, you know, there's a lot of win that you can have with, like, innovation, and then, like, you get to a point that you need to scale, and then, like, you start, like, looking at, like, I want to apply AI. And so it's like, you know, it's different from compared to Spotify. For instance, Spotify has recommender system as part of its core, right? But
hard to add afterwards, maybe.
Yeah, I would say so. But like in there's so many elements in gaming that, like, you can start working and building a successful game before in bringing in AI. So one of our goal is to, like, you know, scale AI in the company. So companies we have been actually, I think, like 3 years ago, for instance, we built a bot that helps with playtesting levels in Candy Crush, so that it tells you before releasing this level, tells you how difficult this level is. So, like, you don't want to have, like, you know, when you have the sequence of the levels that are in Candy Crush Saga progression map, you don't want to have, like, all continuously easy levels or continuously difficult levels, because either you get bored or you get frustrated, right? So you want to have a good user experience. And we use this bot to give us an estimate of the difficulty of the level before giving it to the user. So that's one piece, like, you know, building AI for development. We do research for long-term things. So, like, quite exploratory research, for instance, on reinforcement learning to just assess, like, the potential for future at the company. And then we also spend a lot of time on bringing research to these examples of use cases that I mentioned in product.
So how would this sort of, the promise of AI or the value proposition of AI for King, how would that be sort of on, how would you describe that on a business level to people who are not AI people?
So our vision, I would say, is to enable game development. So it's like building tools that enables a better game development. And the other piece is to improve user experience. Mm-hmm. We believe gaming is like a creative work. And
so this is similar, like Spotify want to, for one, have a great user experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen to music, but they also want to help artists.
Exactly.
So you want to do the same, but then have a good user experience, and also developers of games to have a good experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool. And thinking more, I mean, for a company like King, of course, analytics is very important, and being able to understand users and, you know, do traditional things like user retention, prediction, and things like that. And then AI sometimes can be described differently. Different people, you know, describe this in different ways. But some people at least say there's a difference between, you know, what AI should mean and perhaps what analytics or advanced analytics should be. What's your view of that? Do you have any differences in what, like, analytics and AI mean?
It's one of the difficult questions.
Sorry for that.
May I
That's
rephrase it a little bit?
Okay.
Because one of the conversations we've had, which is more maybe, I refer to our discussion with Carl Tomé at Epidemic Sound. He was very clear. I'm a machine learning engineer. I'm not a data scientist. And he even when he presented himself, he sort of positioned himself. I'm not a advanced analytics person, and I'm not a software engineer. So I think that's been one of the moments we have come with several guests that you can start machine learning engineering without doing analytics and vice versa. So here is a very interesting topic of misconception, probably in some organization or in more traditional organizations.
I think so. If I want to structure my answer, is I have answers in few dimensions. So one is that just looking at my journey, I started as research scientist, research scientist, computer scientist, research scientist, product data scientist. My first title at the Spotify was Advanced Analytics Analyst, which was a strange title, but product data scientist, machine learning engineer, and now AI research lead. So you see, I've been going through a lot of different titles.
But can you distinctly see the difference in what you did when you were more on the scientist side or the ML engineer side? As an example?
Yes, and no, and that's where I want to reach. Is whenever I meet a person and they say any of these titles, even, and also if you include also data engineering, I ask, what exactly do you do? So that I get a sense of this title in this particular company, what it means. I think a lot of companies are moving towards, if you want to think of machine learning, to have machine learning engineer title, because it's easier to hire, because people are used to this title this year, maybe not next year.
This is the new cool title.
I think ML Ops is also a
ML Ops. We have been ML Ops, ML Engineering. That's 2020.
Yeah.
Not 18.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess we can agree that a lot of companies are abusing the terms. What an analyst does and should do, and what AI is and should do, and what a data scientist is, and so forth. Mm-hmm. But if we take King, and you mentioned a number of examples like content generation or recommender systems, or understanding users potentially, and you can think about analytics, which is super important to understand, how the KPIs are moving, and having a good visualization of those, etc. This is a difficult question, but what would you say is the more proper term when to say I'm actually working with AI or not, if we ignore the title of the role, so to speak, for now?
So my team is working on AI, right? So we also have data scientists, and also we have business analysts in the company. I think so. A lot of it's I'm trying to formulate it. I would say. So a lot of things that it goes, for instance, on the time that you spend on focusing on KPIs, or you look at A/B tests that you're running. Those are a lot of analytics work that you need a lot of good. You might need a lot of good statistics knowledge. You might need a lot of a bit of data engineering work, a bit of data visualization work that goes there. But I consider those more of under analytics part of data science.
Yes, I agree.
But then we also have, by the way, we have also, for instance, statisticians that spend on research concepts to bring into improving, for instance, how you interpret an A/B test better, right? So that I call it data advanced statistics part. Having said that, I think data scientists' work is also about building predictive models, not just doing a data exploration. Looking at AI, I think 80% of the work is actually data science work, data exploration work, and understanding your metrics and and so on. And then 20% of that is building a model. When it is super applied, I would call that maybe applied AI or applied ML, or applied or engineering ML. When it comes, because you want to bring that to a production.
So you want to deploy, in the end, you want to find the right model to deploy it as part of the product or user experience for the customer or for the developer.
Exactly, and you need to think about a lot of things. If like, we had just a discussion about like distributed deep learning, for instance. You need some knowledge around like how you orchestrate things around that too, right? But there is also a piece that you need to spend a lot of time on finding out what is actually a right model. Why can't I, if I am doing a normal clustering, why every time it returns a different answer, right? So how can I improve that? Or if I'm building a predictive model, how can consider like certain factors, or how can I model, like similar to the work that we did before together back in Spotify, you want to like have a better understanding of your user journey. You set out a whole research agenda that is unclear scope, and you need to figure out that the scope and establish like machine learning foundations there. I would say it requires a lot of data science and engineering work as well, but the weight of research is higher, and then I call that like ML research work.
Yeah. I mean, ML perhaps is a more clear term. AI is so hard or abused so many times, so it's sometimes a bit hard to understand.
And when we met, I asked you, so what do you do as a ML researcher on a daily basis? So what does that mean?
Well, I attend meetings, prepare slides.
Yeah. But you had some core. In the end, we came up with a couple of core dimensions of the role.
Yeah. So as a research lead, I spend a lot of time on thinking about and like planning, bringing research to production. So thinking about how can we package our research and scope it in a way that can has positive impact on a product. In this case, our games, for instance. And then the other part is about mentorship and supervision of interns and master students and industrial PhDs.
Yes.